I prepared a little project which you as always can find attached to this lecture here, and it's a super simple project. We got a button where we can toggle to only see odd numbers, but right now we don't see any numbers because whilst I do have an array of numbers here in my app component TypeScript file, I'm not outputting it here. However, I did set up a list. So with this, why don't we go ahead and simply add ngFor with a star, since it is a structural directive, to this list item. And then we could simply say let number of numbers. We already learned this syntax. And we could also extract the index if we wanted, but we don't need that here. So that is our single number, and that of course allows it to now output it here. We can output it anywhere inside this element we placed ngFor on, so on any nested elements too. With that, we're outputting the number, and now we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The button still doesn't do anything though. The reason for this is that, well, right now we do something upon clicking. We set only odd, which is this property, to what it currently is not. So if it was false, we set it to true and the other way around. But we're not using this information. Let's use it. Now we could try placing ngIf on the same element we already have ngFor on and check if number modulus, so the percentage sign 2, if that is equal to 0, which would mean now we only display even elements, right? If we do this, we get an error because we can't have more than one structural directive on the same element. It just doesn't work. But we don't need that. We can change it differently. We can simply make a tiny change to our main app here and implement odd numbers, which is 1, 3, and 5. And then, of course, even numbers. And that is just a demo app for directives, right? So that might not be the best solution for your app where you really need this behavior. Later in the pipes section, you will learn how to dynamically filter an array, for example. So here, even would be 2 and 4. With that, I'm going to comment out the first numbers array. And instead here, I'll loop through all my odd numbers and output odd here. And of course, we can do the same for the even numbers now. So even of even numbers. And now to display only one of the two, we can simply wrap them in, let's say, a div. So let's put the list item inside of the div. And on the div, we could place ngIf. And now the first one should only be displayed if only odd is true. And let's do the same for the second one here. Let's place them in here. And we place ngIf on that too, where we check if not only odd. And maybe also replace even here. We now see we can toggle between the two lists, so this is now working with ngFor and ngIf. Nothing new, something we already learned. So these are the two structural directives we learned about and how we may use them and that you can't combine them on the same element. Before we dive deeper into this, let's also have a look at the two attribute directives we learned thus far, two of the most prominent ones.